Now I want to go to Synod voting participant and former head of the Vatican's doctrinal office, Cardinal Gerhard Müller. Your Eminence, thank you so much for being here. And I know today was your first day in the small groups of this Synod. I want to pick up on what Cardinal Burke had said about the synodal agenda. You were chosen to be a participant among bishops and clergy and lay people at the Synod on Synodality. Now, this has been sold as a synod of bishops. Given that lay people are voting participants, is it a synod of bishops in your estimation?
As there was a question on our table, what is the nature and the substance of this synod? Normally is a synod of the bishops, an assembly of the bishops, and now the lay people has the same vote, and therefore they changed the nature is only assembly of bishops, priests, religious and lay people consulting, speaking about several aspects. But the former synod of the bishops was an expression of the collegiality of the bishops, and not only consulting a little bit or speaking about several questions, but to exercise the collegiality with the Pope, because the Pope is not a super bishop, but he is a bishop among the bishops, but he is the principal, the center of this episcopacy, and therefore nobody knows what is meant with this giving the votes also to the lay people, because the nature of this assembly has changed.
I want to get your thoughts on something your successor, Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, said recently in an interview with our own Ed Penton. He warned bishops in particular not to, quote, judge the doctrine of the Holy Father. He also spoke of a unique charism that was only Pope Francis's. Your Eminence, does the person of the Pope have a doctrine or magisterium unique to himself?
There doesn't exist the doctrine of the popes, because there's existing in the Church only the doctrine of Jesus Christ, the doctrine of the apostles, and the Church, the official confession of our faith. And the Pope and the Bishop are the promoters of this doctrine, but they don't have own doctrine. When Pope Benedict XVI wrote his book, his famous book about Jesus, in the foreword, he distinguished it, that is my own theological opinion, but I am don't speaking here as the Pope. Surely the Pope has a special authority in the Church according to our Catholic faith, but he is not a person who receives a new revelation. The revelation is once and forever given in Jesus Christ. Therefore, this idea formulated by the new prefect is a very new idea, special idea. Never I heard of it. I was 16 years professor of dogmatics, and I know all the documents about the papacy and all the councils, but I never read anything about this special charism or gift of the Pope only given to Pope Francis and not to the former popes.
Yeah, well, those former popes should go and ask for, they need to be upgraded. They missed out that they had private doctrine for themselves. Cardinal Müller, you spoke recently about the treatment of certain bishops in the Church who seem to be taking great care to protect the deposit of faith and lead and teach their flocks. Bishop Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas comes to mind, who was recently investigated by the Vatican on really for very little reasons. Your Eminence, do you see a double standard at work in the Vatican's treatment of bishops, particularly when you see merciful treatment afforded to sexual predators like Marco Rupnik and a few other bishops I could name but won't?
Yeah, the bishops are instituted by Jesus Christ in the sacrament of the ordination, episcopal consecration, and they are not the delegates of the Pope, the functionaries of the Pope, and therefore only in the case if they are is going anything wrong in the doctrine or in the moral behavior, there can be made an investigation, but not a visitation only for to discipline a bishop who is called too conservative. What is conservative? A bishop must be orthodox, not in the political sense, conservative or Republicans or Democrats or anything. It's political. Political concepts, but not the theological concept, and therefore I criticize it openly. I criticized it also. I've spoken about it. That is a shame that the good bishops, Orthodox bishops, are under this pressure, and other people who are doing a lot of things very wrong, and also heterodoxes or in the heresies, they can await from Rome a big tolerance. We must be tolerant against the truth, but intolerant against the lies.
Your Eminence, in addition to the set of dubia sent to Pope Francis by Cardinal Burke and others, Czech Cardinal Dominik Duka also sent a set of dubia to Pope Francis. One of those questions asked by the Cardinal regarded Catholic divorces without annulments receiving Holy Communion, divorcees rather. The answer given by the Pope and his chief doctrinal officer, Cardinal Fernandez, said the following: Amoris Laetitia opens the possibility of access to the sacraments of reconciliation and Eucharist when, in a particular case, there are limitations that mitigate responsibility and guilt, end quote. Your Eminence, at the time we said Amoris Laetitia, that footnote, would become its own book. It has. That answer seems to contradict the Council of Trent, St. John Paul II's 1993 encyclical Veritatis Splendor, and I mean, it's practically a hall pass to adultery. Is adultery no longer a sin? And are adulterers welcome to communion now? Is this an evolution of doctrine that we're seeing?
I think it's very clear in the Old Testament, the commandments in the New Testament, that all sins in the sexual behavior outside the legitimate matrimony is a mortal sin, and that nobody can change it. It is a word of God, and these declarations, in this sense, interpretations, are not only against documents of the former popes and the councils, but are going directly against the word of God. And the Second Vatican Council said the magisterium is not superior to the word of God, but is under the word of God and serves to him. And the Pope and nobody in the Church has the authority to relativize the commandments of God.
So, Cardinal Müller, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're basically saying the Pope and Cardinal Fernandez really are stating something that is not true and impossible in the Catholic faith, granting communion to divorcees who have not reconciled, who have not, who are either remarried or in a new relationship.
If you are asking them what is the truth, they will repeat the doctrine of the Church, but then they make their exceptions. But in some cases, there are no exceptions. And we cannot relativize the Word of God with the so-called ethics of the situation. No? The situation is belonging to our subjective condition, but not to the objective conditions for the sacraments.
Your Eminence, I only have 1 minute left. You said before this synod that this was really a hijacking of the Church. That's what you called the synod itself. After a day of taking part in this, do you have the same opinion? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, the experience with the table took place was very good, and I have therefore a certain form of optimism. But at the end, we must wait in what direction it will go at what will be the decisions behind the scenery. That is always the problem.
Well, I'm glad you're there, willing to speak the truth in those doors, and we will check in with you in the weeks ahead, Your Eminence. Thank you so much for being here. Cardinal Gerhard Müller, we wish you the best. Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.